Hi everyone and welcome to another language quirk video. So last time we talked about Romanian and in this video we're going to talk about Japanese. So it has no plurals, it has only two tenses. I know, right? How? I will explain. Another quirk is that it conjugates its adjectives. The correct way to describe that, though, is declension. Technically, conjugation is only for verbs, but hear me out, this will make sense. Another thing, Japanese has an SOV structure, very important, and of course the dreaded kanji, the bane of all students. And if you don't know what they are, watch till the end and I will explain that horror for you. So, in the Japanese language, a lot of stuff is deduced from context. So whether you say I ate an apple or you say I ate apples, in Japanese it will be the same. Ringo o tabemashita. And the closest example I can give to explain how apple is a concept in Japanese and not as straightforward as it is in other languages is to use cake instead of an apple. When you say I ate cake, you just deduce that you ate a slice or two slices and one thicker slice. You didn't eat the whole cake in most cases, or you didn't eat multiple cakes. And that's kind of how things work in Japanese as well. It's kind of hard to explain when you don't have these things in your own language. So if you want to be specific, you can say ringo o iko tabemashita, which means you ate a singular apple. Now iko is not one, iko is counting, and if it was a banana, it would have been ippun, because counting in Japanese depends on the shape of the object. And if you want to know more about that, you can purchase tutoring lessons from me on Fiverr. Now back to the video and our example at hand. If you want to say you ate multiple apples, you can use taksan to say you ate lots of apples. And that's how plurals work in Japanese, sort of, which is not how most languages do it. And in fact, some languages like the Slavic and Middle Eastern ones have an even more complicated plural system than just this singular plural that we have in most European languages. So onward to the next one. It only has two tenses. Japanese has only past and non-past as tenses. Now, as half Romanian, I have 5 tenses in Romanian, and I'm half Turkish, and that has 4 tenses. So you can imagine this was hella confusing for me as to how you don't have a minimum of 3 tenses like past, present, and future, you know? But they don't. All those long convoluted conjugations you may see on learning websites, those are for mods, negation, and courtesy levels. Those are not tenses. They are other grammar stuff. For example, English has 4 modes, Romanian has 8. I don't want to talk about it. Back to Japanese. So it has 2 tenses, and if you want to say something will happen later in some future, again, context matters, and you have to use words like later, tonight, next week, and so on. So it is doable, it's just not how most languages do time. So onward to discuss declension. Oh my gosh. So this is a bit more complicated, and the best way I can explain this phenomenon is that words in a sentence are in accord with each other, and this irrational quirk is found in most languages, and it's usually because the speakers feel it sounds better. It's a feeling. It's very silly in my opinion, and Japanese, thank God, only has it for its adjectives. English only has it for its pronouns, and Romanian, again, needlessly complicates stuff, and it has it for everything. Now, I am adding Romanian to these examples so that you can better understand what's going on. Not because I want to torture you with Romanian grammar, but by the way, Hungarian and Polish are way worse. Now, using those would be cruel and unusual punishment toward you. So now pay attention to this example. She is hugging him. That is the version that sounds good to you English speakers, right? Not she is hugging he. That feeling there that you're having to change the pronoun is declension for pronouns. Japanese doesn't feel that need for pronouns. It does for adjectives, however. And the third example is with Romanian, which can do it every which way, but sounds more normal and less academic if you have declension for pronouns. Yep. And let's get into the meat of it with this mess, and I'll try to explain Japanese adjective declension. Are you ready to suffer? Learn? Learn? Are you ready to learn? Okay. So, as you can see in this example, the adjective tall remains tall, no matter what is happening around it. Tense change, gender change, plural change, doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Tall will always be tall, and that's great. In Japanese, however, whether a verb is in the past or non-past, that changes the adjective. Whether it's positive or negative, that also changes it. And Romanian has adjective declension as well, but it's in accord with the subject's gender and number. So that is why I was saying Japanese does this weird thing where adjectives are conjugated. And personally, I don't know of any other languages that has declension in accord with the verb. If you have such weirdness in your language, please let me know in the comments below, because this is hella weird and it's very interesting. And to make matters worse, languages that have declension then think they can omit stuff. In the case of Romanian, because of subject declension, be it a pronoun or noun, that means it can be omitted. So in Japanese, yep, you guessed it, the verb can be missing. Isn't that great? A verbless sentence. Not confusing at all. So look here in our example, 彼女は背がたいです, which means she's tall. But in language translators, that verb des will be missing because you have that I in the end, which means she is tall now, and she is indeed tall. It's an affirmation. The girl is tall. Basically saying, damn, she tall. So English can do it, just doesn't sound like textbook English. It sounds kind of American, if you ask me. And it's probably borrowed from some other language, since American English does that a lot. Now look again to the past and negative form of tall in Japanese. Segakata. Kunakata. That kuna means no, it's a negation. And kata means it's in the past. So that is part of the adjective. It's not a verb glued on there like in German. And yeah, can be quite confusing if you think about it. And I think you can agree that 彼女は背が高くなかったではありませんでした sounds way too long and silly if you just want to say she wasn't tall. So the verb is dropped and you just have she not talled. If you were to conjugate an adjective and make it in the past in English, you would just add an ed on tall, so it would be like she not tall, sort of. And it's kind of like saying, was she tall, man? Nah, dude, she not tall at all. She hella short, bro. So hope I explained that well as to what is kind of happening there. Let me know in the comments if that makes sense to you. So, next topic. Oh, the SOV structure. After that headache, I'm sorry about the declension, I had to cover it. We need something more simpler to learn. So half of the world's languages are subject, verb, object, like in English and most European languages. So for example, Ernest, my little bunny, eats apples. Ernest is this cute little mascot you keep seeing in all my videos, and that's how things usually go, like I said, in English and most European languages. Now, a third of the world's languages are subject, object, verb, like Japanese and Turkish. So they say Ernest apples eats. And of course, the rest are VOS, OVS, and the rarest is object, subject, verb. The apples Ernest is going to eat. Kind of makes him sound like a posh villain, don't you think? Oopsie daisy. And last and certainly least fun are the kanji. So what is this? Why is this? Why? Like this doohickey is at the same time rice, United States of America, and a metric system. Whose idea was this? Now, many people like to blame the Chinese for this nonsensical writing system. But as controversial as it may be, I do not blame them. Now, hear me out. Put your pitchforks down and repeat after me. Nobody's forcing you to insist with a dumb idea. Like the Koreans abandoned the Chinese system and are using Hangul, which is a syllabary, like hiragana and katakana, which are the other two writing systems in the Japanese language. And the Turks, for example, have abandoned the utter nonsense that is the Arab writing system, and now they are using the Latin alphabet. So it can be done. And Japanese, you only have yourselves to blame for the state that you are in. So if you want to learn how to read 5 different ways the same doodad, you can by hiring me as your personal tutor on Fiverr. And if you feel personally oppressed and tormented by kanji, I have a small comfort to offer to you, and that is if you are Romanian, if you are Russian, Polish, or Hungarian, it will be a nightmare for the Japanese to learn our languages, and they will never do it right. Never. Never. So, petty revenge is what I'm basically offering. Sorry, I got nothing else to counterbalance kanji than gender nouns, irregular plurals and verbs, and sounds they don't have in their language, like L and V. These do not exist in the Japanese language. So, hope you've enjoyed this video explaining the quirks of the Japanese language, and if you want to help me out, you can by subscribing, liking, commenting, all of that. Let me know what other things you want me to explain. And as always, thank you so much for your watching, for your support, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye everyone.